welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. The joke among salary earners is that January has at least 70 days. But guess what? January is now in its last days, and look just how eventful it's been in our polity. From Edugate, landmark Supreme Court judgment, a major explosion in Ibadan, and insecurity showing that it is still a very present and real danger even to residents of the Federal Capital Territory. There's been so much for citizens to process within this first 31 days. It also points to the fact that there's so much work to be done to get to our El Dorado, if such a place exists. On Hard Copy tonight, we intend to look at some of the challenges that have bedeviled us so far and proffer solutions to propel us forward. My guest is a former Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development and a former Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Osita Chidoka. Mr. Chidoka, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much, Mobe, and Happy New Year.
And I'm glad that you never protest anytime I call you a former minister, a former this, or former that. You know, nowadays there's a whole battle between former and immediate past. And I'm wondering, where's that coming from?
Well, personally, I don't put any appellations to my name. My name is simply Osita Chidoka, and currently I'm the founder and chancellor of the Athena Institute of Policy and Leadership. So that's what I do, and I'm okay with that.
Have you left politics completely?
Not quite. I have a day job.
Okay, well, that's allowed. That's certainly allowed, and people are allowed to do other things in spite of being members of political parties. But usually when you're occupying such a platform, it does mean then that you might need to be a little more, people expect a little more objectivity, so to speak.
Yes, in my work, but not in my choices.
Indeed. Okay, that's taken. Now let's take a look at some of events that have happened in the past week, especially on the political scene. Well, not on the political scene. They're actually more around governance. But, you know, politics has a way of affecting everything. The first is this decision by coming from the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, asking the headquarters of FAN to move back to Lagos. And, you know, that seemed like an ordinary administrative decision taken in the best interest of, you know, delivering results, but it does seem to have taken a political turn with some socio-political groups, you know, protesting and saying, you know, this is meant to decimate our own area, etc. As somebody who also advises policy, I mean, I know you've done some work in policy making, and you also, you know, talk to people around how to build policy. How would you advise that they navigate this sort of conundrum? Like I said,
evidence-based. I'm the chairman of the Anambra State, vice chairman actually of the Anambra State Educational Council. And the idea was to map a new pathway for education in Anambra. So what we first did was to gather the data. Surprisingly, 38% of the students in Anambra public schools are non-indigenous of Anambra State. So we're now mapping out the states where they come from. We're now mapping out the locality and why our students in the private schools, how many are in the private schools, how many are in the public, how many are in the mission schools. So that decision is what is informing what the governor is doing now for free education, because it is the decision of linking the reason why people are either shying away from school or going to the private schools, what are the issues. So at the end of the day, you have to navigate that evidence-based process such that when confronted with everybody, people will know that, yeah, these are the facts. So we mapped out the cost of running a school and told the governor, this is the bill. If you want free education, you must pay this every month. And he said, yeah, the state will do that to ensure equal access and equal opportunity. So you can have a political motive, but you have to find a rational economic process of implementing it.
Well, and you know, we're a country not very big on data.
No, we don't like data.
Gathering data is also, it can be a political decision.
So even when you gather data and talk about data, what happens is that people tend to look at you and say, this man is not realistic. His feet is not on the ground. So they say, Osita and he's too much grammar. But at the end of the day, we all come back to the problem because nothing trumps evidence, nothing trumps data. At the Federal Road Safety, I have a slogan, in God we trust. all others must provide evidence. Every other person must give us evidence. So you must show us the decision why we have to do what we do. I'll give you another instance. When I was at the Federal Road Safety, we used to have crashes, but we didn't know the pattern or the morphology of the crashes. We had a nagging suspicion where the crashes were many. But when we installed a CRM system that tracked all the accidents in Nigeria, we found out that Abuja, Kaduna was our worst road. That's where the most people died on the road. We found out that Tuesdays were the worst days on the road for reasons we do not know. We found out that Wednesdays and Thursdays are calm on the road, then Fridays, the challenges start. Then we found out that accidents occur mainly between 2 and 4, between the middle of the country and towards the far north. Reason, FRSC staff have left the road to go and change for the afternoon shift to come. Drivers tend to want to move faster before they come back. They knew that. So we had to tweak the time we leave the road to mitigate that challenge. So that's why I said, when I look at government agencies taking decisions today, I'm wondering, on what basis are you arriving at this decision? Because you must gather evidence, you must gather data to be able to say to people, this is why we're doing what we're doing.
But you have been in this country and you've seen how difficult it is for us to even have a census, for us to even know how many we are, for state governments to be able to say, okay, if there is no credible data coming from the national level, let's even register people who are residents in our state. It's a political decision. It then becomes a political decision, or it can take a political turn, dimensions of which even they might not even be able to envisage. So how do we begin to orientate our people that data is extremely important for government to be able to take decisions that will benefit all of us at the end of the day?
See, I hear you very well, and I know this is a major challenge. But you can gather data in buckets. Let each agency gather their data. Then the person that is sitting on top can pull all of this to give you a rational view of the country. Okay, so let me say something about population. So we have an issue before, but now we have biometrics. So we now have a national identity card that has almost 80 million or 90 a year now with biometric data. We have the CBN BVN with biometric data. We have the passport with biometric data. We have the driver's license with biometric data. So you can we have the voter register with the biometric data. It's almost 100 million now. So you can pull this together and begin to get a sense of who lives where. So by bringing this data together, you can easily see from CBN data where the cash is moving in the country, the top people who hold money in the country, and how much people have in the bottom brackets of the society. You can see from the immigration data how many people travel out of the country, how many times do they travel. So you begin to get a sense of your traffic on the international route and Nigerians' buying behavior. You can then use the voter cards and the voting actually to see how people turn up. So I don't think the country should get fixated on having that one number. Nigeria has issues, but I'm a Nigerian optimist. I think that we can solve the problem. Instead of arguing chicken and the egg, which came first, we just have both for breakfast.
I was trying to enumerate some of the things that happened in January, and one of them we heard happened around governance. We saw what happened with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, and you have since given your comments on what is now termed as Edugate. I don't know whether you're satisfied with the decisions that have been taken so far and how long it's taken for us to understand what exactly is going on with that ministry and the process of knowing what exactly the minister has done wrong.
Well, yeah, I think there's a time issue. The government should move faster. Like I said, it's a symptom of a systemic failure. And I want to say this. So this administration has some challenges. President Bola Tinubu was a former governor and a former senator. The vice president is a former governor, former senator. The chief of staff is a former legislator. The deputy chief of staff is a former legislator. Now, these four people sitting in a room have no experience with how the federal bureaucracy works. So what I see that is bound to happen is that in the states, control mechanisms are not there. Permanent secretaries are perfunctory. The governors take all the decisions. In the National Assembly, they don't have any decision to make on the bottom line. So they just ask for money. If they pay them, the civil servants handle it. So the challenge is that understanding the federal bureaucracy and forcing the ministers to behave correctly is the job of the president and the vice and their key advisors. Unfortunately, the SGF2 is a former governor, legislator. He had some civil service background. The reason why I say this is that, if Edu knows that when she minutes something to the president is going to send it down to the bureaucracy to comment, she will have known that there was no way to approve a memo asking you for approval without the permanent secretary's comment. She shouldn't have written approved. She should have said, PS, treat. Then the permanent secretary will do all the work, check audit, check budget line, and then present it back to the minister and said, Minister is hereby invited to approve A, B, C, D. This way, she will have exonerated herself from any issues that had come out of it. So it was careful inexperience and also a climate that is allowing people to act before they think. Because I see a lot of them making pronouncements without any reference to the professionals in their ministries. So,
yeah, well, I read your conclusion there where you said that the saga may be another pointer and confirmation that the state government is very unlike the federal government. The state experience may not be relevant or may even be a disability in running the more sophisticated federal bureaucracy. And some people have pointed to the fact that we do not exactly have, which you also pointed to, the fact that there's usually a retreat of some sort, minister's retreat, yes, after people are appointed, and people would have imagined that maybe they will get a crash course on how the bureaucracy works. But it doesn't seem that that's what happens.
No, they did. They actually had somebody, Dr. Joe Abba, told me he facilitated the retreat, and that these issues were raised, but the ministers kept pushing back. The retreat came after they have sat in office for some time. Okay. So they already came with their formed mindset about ministers being chief executive officers. So ministers should learn, if they have worked in the bureaucracy. I was lucky to have been a chief executive of an agency before I went to become a minister. So I had deep respect for the system because the system really do work. If you guide them, they really do work. The minister's role is like that of the chairman of a board. You set the tone. You make them know that you are not here for freebies. You make them know that you are not ready to take bribes from them. You will see the bureaucracy begin to work in the manner you have indicated. But once you want to be approving from your office, which Bette Edu was doing, it then means that she thought of herself as a chief executive and chief accounting officer. And even at that, maybe that is what her bosses will reward. If she gives out all these monies and it goes to people and everybody is happy, maybe that's what they will reward. Otherwise, I think it was a clear abuse of process.
So this needs to move faster.
Yes,
because you have also said that this could be a learning opportunity for.
It's a learning opportunity for all the ministers, everybody, including the Minister of Interior, who had issues with a company. So once you have a company that is of your family, you then need to declare it as you go into procurement in the bureaucracy. You can't go into the bureaucracy with a business that belongs to your family where you are in the same Federal Executive Council that will take decisions on it. If the company has been working for the government before you came to government, you then need to put it in a blind trust. And then you need to put that Chinese wall between you and the company, but people will have known that company. So failure to have declared their interest, because, if your wife is on the board, if you have resigned from the board, these are part of your declarations. And this is what the government needs to do with all the ministers now, to tell them, declare your interest in any business where you have served or served before, where you have even been a board member, even if not a shareholder. So that puts us on the screen that once something is coming from your ministry, that anything involving your counterparts, where any of your counterparts has had an interest, it needs to be declared. And that can save us too many headaches.
We're looking at what has happened also right here in the Federal Capital Territory. Security has, shaken, let's say, the foundations of the FCT. We've seen the president has had to summon his service chiefs. The minister has also spoken to security agencies, or security agencies. Is busy visiting the area councils, as they're called. First, I'm just wondering, you're still a member of the PDP, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
And he is still a member of the PDP. He hasn't exactly defected. Did you have a relationship with him before now?
Yes, I did.
You still have one?
We're in cabinet together.
That's true.
He was Minister of State for Education.
Are you in touch with him?
Not recently.
Okay. So, but when you look at the challenges currently bedeviling the FCT, as someone who's been resident here for many years, I'm wondering what your solutions. Have you thought about what exactly could be the loophole? This is not the first time we're seeing this sort of situation. How many years ago, the Kuje prison outbreak happened. We're never able to get back all of the prisoners. But that even such a thing could happen where terrorists came and freed their own members from inside prison located within the territory of the federal capital was something that, got many people befuddled. So as somebody who's been resident here, who's been a member of cabinet, who is also perhaps been privy to some high-level discussions, are you concerned that such a thing is happening?
Well, I'm concerned, but I knew it would happen. So
you're not surprised?
I'm not surprised. It was a matter of time. I wrote an article 2 years ago when President Buhari was still in office, and I said, if the president can live in Abuja, and I put a picture of Google Map, and 50 kilometers away in Jere, in Buhari, people can't go to Kaduna by road because the kidnappers are on that road. So army officers go to the rail station and go to Kaduna. Police officers go to the rail station. So Kaduna Road was literally abandoned. I said, if the president is living 50, 60 kilometers away, even 100 from these issues, and doesn't consider it priority to clear the Abuja-Kaduna Road, then we're in trouble in Nigeria. Because it will only be a matter of time before they come down into Abuja to look for more high-profile people for kidnap. So that decision, that inaction of the Buhari government is what we're still suffering from. On this account, I really don't blame the Tinubu administration because it's less than 1 year. They're still figuring it out. But the situation has gone very bad. One of the lessons Nigerians must learn in voting for presidents now and in the future is that 8 years of damage will require 25 years of work to bring it back to zero. So we must not make the mistake of thinking, this is from my ethnic group, I need to elect him. The danger, the killings in the north, the people that have died in Katsina, Zamfara today, were there when President Buhari who's from Katsina. So the security situation we have is endemic, it's structural. There's a problem with the security architecture. But I want to just make a quick suggestion. We're not the first country that has been confronted with this type of situation, so we can learn. And I wrote a long article about it when President Buhari was in office, and I sent it to the National Security Advisor then. And I said, Colombia had a more serious problem of FARC rebels, of the Colombian warlords. And they tried this military approach. It didn't work. The military couldn't do internal security operation. It's not in their DNA. That's not what they were trained for. They were trained to shoot and kill. They were trained to conquer, destroy, and then impose a new order. So that's why they are for external enemies. The police is too weak in Nigeria to take on the internal security challenges. The State Security Service is an intelligence organization which provides intelligence, but do not have enforcement capabilities, even though they developed some. So in between all of this, I said, Colombia adapted something, I don't know where they took it from, to set up a special force called the Jungler. This was a combination of all the people from the military, police, retrained only on merit basis. So they were trained by the British security forces, and they were trained by the Navy SEALs from America. If you survive the training, then you're fine. So they have gunboats, they have helicopters, they have intelligence, they have serious weaponry, and they were able to take out most of these drug lords. They gave FARC so much fight that FARC people were forced to the negotiation table. So Colombia is now more peaceful than it used to be. The drug lords have been killed, and some of them are captured, killed, or jailed. Now we can learn a lesson from that. When a country is confronted with a problem, we just need to go back to our table and rethink a solution. We can't apply the same solution all the time and hope that we'll get a different result. So I think that the architecture where you find intelligence that they are moving here, you call the military, you call the Air Force. Sometimes the Army gets there first, or the Air Force gets there first. Sometimes they take the wrong coordinates and drop their payload on innocent civilians. Yes. So that whole coordination, that whole capability to strike has to be embedded in an organization that is designed for it, an organization that is almost detached from the society.
Are you looking for another security organization apart from the police, apart from the military?
So that was the idea. We wanted the mobile police force. Mm-hmm. So we can take over that idea and bring back people who have these capabilities. And we can even take military officers for bringing their infantry knowledge. We can take Air Force officers for bringing their flying skills. But they are now demobilized from the organizations, and they are now members of this elite corps. So their job will be to not only find the criminals doing this, but to find their backers. So they will have a strong work with the DSS to find the flow of money, because 200 million collected from people they're going somewhere. Even in the Southeast, the kidnappers are taking bank transfers, and nothing has happened, because that will lead you at least to one point, the person who collected the transfer. So I think that
the audacity
is just unbelievable. So it is the fact that we need to rethink, or we need to do an interventionist action. People always say, oh, don't take a quick fix. I said, but this is a quick problem. We need a quick fix. So if we have to rethink that, I think that will help the President Tinubu administration. They can still contact the Colombians. They can still contact elite forces around the world.
Well, I also know that, in addition to all that you've spoken about your work, in New Policy Institute, which you're currently heading. I also know that you're very big on mentorship. You've been doing a lot of work with young people. Yes, you've been very vocal, and you say you're an optimist.
Yes, I'm a very big Nigerian optimist.
And
yes,
that optimism is not very strongly felt amongst young people when it comes to their country. I'm sure that
it's very low.
Yes, it is very low.
Yes.
I don't know how it is you think that we can begin to awaken that optimism again. It's a problem, isn't it?
A big problem. But I have a message for the young Nigerians.
Which is?
That they should live in Niger not Nigeria.
They should live in Niger. The difference is?
The Niger is that space we have formed where our tribes and tongue do not matter, where Davido's music is competing with Flavor's music and nobody is asking whether it is Igbo or Yoruba. It is that Nigeria where our movies are going across Africa and people are watching it and using Igbo words or Yoruba words as they learn from the movies. It is that place where the government does not bring its disruptive tendencies to plain things like you said, take a decision administratively and then you have ethnic backlash. It is that place, that space where the tech industry are operating in today, where young Nigerians started OPay, started Flutterwave, started Stripe, and they are doing tremendously well, leveraging on the large youthful population, on the educated population in Nigeria, on our fairly decent standing in the world in terms of inflows of cash into Nigeria, both from diaspora and our year revenues. So I'm saying to them, we need to bring the spirit of Niger to Nigeria, which is part of what my mentorship program do. We have about 8,000 Nigerians on that mentorship program from across all Nigeria. And I'm beginning to make them see that the challenges are the same. We don't need to talk down on each other. We don't need to accuse the people in the North of not understanding that they're benefiting from a quota system. Guess what? The North is not benefiting. The people benefiting are those in power who have put their children in CBN, in NDIC, in SSS, in the NIA, in top organizations. Go there and look. The names of the people there correlate to the names of the people in public office. So the young, disenfranchised Nigeria in the North is in the same situation with the young Igbo boy who is applying and saying, I'm disadvantaged. So it is connecting that message. It is the young people understanding that they don't need to talk against each other. They need to communicate honestly, share their challenges, and then begin to see those who will be in the vanguard of making that new Nigeria come to pass. So which is why I said it is to understand the spirit of Niger, and then we can take it to Nigeria.
Well, we'll see where that will lead us. I'm hoping that we'll be able to catch up with you when that conversation starts and maybe when this particular cohort of your mentorship program is over. Mr. Osita Chidoka, thank you for coming on Hard Copy. My pleasure. Well, that's the program tonight. Your feedback is always welcome to the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Good night.